Hey guys, welcome to Modern Crafting. Today we are going to be making a concrete shelf. Here is our example of what we're making today. And we are going to mix the concrete and pour it and mold it and then make a cool shelf out of it. First of all, cover your working area. You're going to need your pan for molding, your bag that has cement and sand in it, your container to mix with something to stir it that you don't mind getting concrete on, and your straw, your 3 strands of rope, and you've got 6 beads, 3 large and 3 small. Also, you are going to want a pair of scissors to cut your straw with, and a glue gun to glue the straw down with, and something to grease your pan so that the concrete will release once it's dry. It'll be easier to pop it out. We are going to create a mold that has pieces of straw so that when we pour the concrete, we've got 3 spots where it's not going to go, and that's going to create your hole to the bottom. So we want to get that glued down nice and tight so that it doesn't seep under. Okay? First of all, we have to figure out, where do I put the straws? You don't want them to be kind of all wonky and off where it may not hang straight. So I've marked holes on here. So as you can see the light's shining on it. Okay, turn it like that. You can see where I've marked the holes. You can pause this so that you can kind of get a better idea. I've got one here kind of at the top where 12 o'clock would be, and then I've got the other dots in the next holes that are, or in the next triangle things that are 3 spaces apart, if that makes sense. So I would recommend you could get a pen and mark 3 dots in there, because then when you're gluing down your straws, you're going to know right where to put them. And that will give you a nice triangle. And you don't want to put your dots on these ridges because they're raised, and it'll be hard to get your straw to lie flat and the concrete could seep under. Okay, so here we go. We are going to cut lengths of straw. I would say maybe a little over 1 inch. I would say it doesn't need to be as tall as the pan, but it needs to be taller than the concrete you're going to pour. So, and I'm going to cut them into the pan because they fly all over the room. Try and cut them straight. If you cut them at an angle, they won't lay flush in the pan. So, cut 1. All right. Glue gun is heated up. There we go. So put a little bit of glue there. Then I'm going to stick that over the top. Let it sit for a second. And I can do all 3 of them like that, and then I'm going to go back around them with glue. Okay, so now you can see I've got this. I'm going to put a little bit of glue around the base of each one very carefully, not too much. I'm just going to go around it just to make sure there's a barrier and there's no cement that's going to, or concrete. It's called concrete after you mix it with sand and or gravel, which we're not doing because we want smooth shelves. Okay, so I'm going to go around here. And like so, like that. And I just want to make sure this is straight, up and down. And I just want to make sure that where the straw meets the pan, that little crack, that it's filled in with glue so we don't get anything seeping under it. And I'm going to go do the same to the other ones. So now I've got those nice and glued down. Make sure they're standing straight up and they're not like going sideways. Make sure your bottom is flat again. I'm going to grease the bottom. I recommend you go around the edges, like so, and then you can literally just take your napkin. Try not to misform your shape while you're doing it, because you still want this to be a circle. And if you get it on the straws, it's going to the straws are going to pop out a lot easier. Okay. So now it is ready for cement. We're going to move on to the cement. Okay, now we're going to mix our concrete. So we can set this aside, and we're going to take our bag. Mine is unsealed, so make sure yours is sealed. And you can have it go like this to mix it up. You can shake it a little bit. You can stick your little stir stick. Mine is quite a bit longer. In here to stir it. You just want to make sure that you get all of the sand and the cement mixed all up together thoroughly. Okay. Once it is mixed up, it will look like that, gray powder. We're going to put some in your mixing container. Now I gave you extra in this bag, so you're going to have more than you need just in case you get it too runny. I wanted you to have a little bit extra to be able to fix it if you ended up adding too much water. Also, you will need to, probably at this point, pause the video and go get yourself a cup of water. Okay, you can pour this in. It does kind of get a little dusty, so if you have anything disposable, any little container will work, and you just scoop this out. We're just going to put that in there. I would say scoop out about 3/4 of what you have in here. In this container, it's like that high. Some of you have the wider containers, and so because it's more spread out, it'll be lower. But that's actually probably, I don't have one sitting here, that's probably the same width as this. So if you put it in so it's like this tall, and then add the water, that's going to be about the right amount into the wider mixing containers, the ice cream ones. Okay, we're going to pour some water in. Here's what I recommend. Pour half your water in. You're going to need more than that, but start with half. Because if you pour too much in, it's going to be wet and soupy, and it's hard to undo. You can add more powder, but you don't want to go back and forth with too dry, too soupy, too dry, too soupy, and then end up running out of this. So let's pour some of this in. It's about half. I'm going to mix. Okay. So it's got some clumps. Basically looks like wet sand at the beach. I've got some dry spots. I've got some wet clumps, but it's not really sticking together. So I'm going to pour some more water in. Keep mixing. You want to get down on the bottom. You want to make sure you're getting all that dry concrete at the bottom. Mixing it up. Okay, this is sticking a little bit better. Okay, so it's starting to stick together. Still a little dry. I'll pour that in. So, okay, so here is the consistency that it is right now. Can you see that? Kind of like a thick oatmeal. I'm going to grab some more water. Okay, at this point, you're going to add little bits of water because a little goes a long way, and you don't want to end up with like slurpy consistency. So I'm just going to add like that much, and you can always add more, right? But you can't take it out once it's in. So maybe like a couple tablespoons at a time. Okay, that's looking better. We're almost there. I like mine a little on the wetter side. Some people do it more like an oatmeal consistency. I like it to be a little tiny bit wetter than that. Okay, see that? So it's not quite liquidy, but it's like maybe a little thinner than oatmeal. Maybe if you add a little milk to your oatmeal. That's what we're looking for. Here's the part that could create potential for mess. So I'm not going to use the rest of this water. I'm not going to need any more of this because I didn't get it too wet. I don't have to add. If you get it too wet, put in a little bit more of the cement, and that will absorb some of the water. Alright, so that is looking good. So, okay, so make sure this is still flat. Check and make sure you've got glue going all the way around each of these so this doesn't seep under your straws. And then I'm just going to pour it in. Now if you dump it, it's going to splash, so let's not do that. So I'm going to pour it around. Try not to get it in the straws. That is not going to help you. Alright, so I poured part of it, and I'm going to kind of guide it, especially behind the straws, if you can see, because it's such a tight space. It's only about 3/4 of an inch or an inch of room behind the straws. So don't knock your straws over when you do this. Be very gentle. I'm going to spread this out a little bit. Okay, so I'm basically just getting a coating. I'll hold this up on the whole bottom of the pan. Then you can do that. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add all of this because I think this is a good, make a good thickness. I'm going to do this gently because if you pick it up, you don't want to bend this. See how this bends? You want to be really careful about that. I'm just going to go like that. I noticed that there's some like thick clumps in here. I'm going to spread the love here. All right. There we go. All right, now you could have air bubbles in here, and this is kind of like bumpy. If you, do I have an example? I don't have an example of a bumpy one here. If you don't spread out the top and it's bumpy, it's going to dry bumpy. So if I take this and I go like this, I'll show you. If I let it dry like that, my shelf is going to look like that. So it's going to dry however you do this. So if you want it to be super smooth, like, I'll show you this one. Can you tell? There it is. See how smooth that is? That's because I made sure that my cement was really smooth. So you can take your little stick and you can kind of spread it out a little bit, make sure it's even and not like thick on one side and thin on the other. And then wipe that off so you don't get cement everywhere. Concrete. It's not concrete because we mixed it. Okay. Little tiny taps. Don't do thick ones. You'll notice that the little air bubbles are coming to the top, most likely. You probably at least have a few. That's good because then you won't have air bubbles in your shelf, which when they pop, they just make like little divots or holes. So I do that a few times. You can also move this other way. You can also go like this on the sides and just kind of hit it, but I'm denting that in, so you gotta be careful. And you could smooth out any bubbles that come to the top. Make sure they pop. All right, and that is what it's gonna look like. Now, that needs to dry for at least 24 hours. So if we were in class, we would finish this following week. Luckily, through the magic of video, I can show you how to finish it right now. So this, let it sit for 24 hours. It should be completely dry to the touch. Even 2 days might even be even better, just to make sure that it is dry all the way through. Okay, so we're going to set that one aside, and we're going to grab the one that I already made. Here is a finished one, and this actually got wonky. So this one I've already done, and I'm going to show you how to release it and finish the project. All right, so you're just going to take this and you're going to peel it back. Just push it like this all the way around. And because you've sprayed it, it shouldn't be too difficult. Okay, and then you can just, once you get enough space in there, you can just grab it and peel it out like that. Because this has kind of the ridges in it, it's not going to be a smooth edge, so if you want to sand it down or file it down, you can do that if you want a perfectly smooth edge. That's completely up to you. Next thing we're going to do is pull these straws out. Now, they're pretty stuck in there, so I am going to use needle nose pliers. There's glue on the back, so if you probably can't get your nail in there, but the glue is going to make it a little more difficult to get them out. So if you go like this and stick it to kind of try and break up the glue, and you can kind of grab the glue off the bottom like that, it'll help it to release a little bit better. And if you can get under the glue, there we go. Okay. So if you can see, I got under that piece of glue right there. I'm just going to pull on it. Probably easier to pull on it with the pliers, like so. And you can twist and pull and whatever, and that'll help this straw to come out a little easier, because it's actually not always the concrete that's holding it in. Sometimes it's that glue is in there, and I just grab it and twist. However you can get it out, honestly, without injury to yourself or your project, is acceptable. So there we go. So I've loosened up that glue and trying to pull the glue off. You could take a pair of scissors and like cut. There they are. Cut some of this extra glue off, like so. Okay. So I got a lot lot of the glue off. It's loose. Now I'm gonna flip it over. I'm gonna grab that same one. I'm gonna grab it like this, and I'm just gonna twist to release the straw. You can put one of your needle nose down the center of the straw, clamp it, and just turn like that. Or you can grab it like this, like you're just grabbing it in a little alligator mouth, and turn it in a circle like that. And that will also help to break. Oh, and it's coming out the back. You can pull it out the front or out the back. Okay, so now it's loose. I'm just going to slide it out. So now I have a hole there. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing with the other side. Now some of you might find that your concrete leaked under and you can't even see your straw from the bottom because there's a tiny layer, a very thin layer of concrete that is seeped under. All I do is figure out where that hole was, and I take my needle nose and I just kind of tap through that into the straw. And then you can stick your needle nose in there and go like this to get the concrete out like that. And then just do the normal process of getting it out. You might have some that break, the straw breaks off. It's hard to do. Needle nose are your friend. So get as much of the glue off as you can, and then twist, twist, twist to break the seal of the straw on your shelf. Okay, now I'm ready to string it. You've got 3 of these strings. Okay, 1 large bead. Put your strings through there. Grab it from the other side. Okay, now we're going to tie a knot. So you're just going to go like this, push that through, and try and slide the knot with your finger down as far as you can. And you can leave a little bit of a tail like that. And pull, 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 nice and tight. There you go, just a little knot. Then you're going to slide your large bead down, like so. So now you should have a string with a bead and a knot at the bottom. Go from under your shelf, stick your rope through the hole like that, and just pull it all the way through till your bead hits the bottom. And you're going to do that with all 3. Okay, I didn't figure you wanted to watch me string all 3 of them since it's exactly the same. So now we've got, the bottom should look like this. You've got your shelf with 3 strings strung on there with a bead on each, the large beads. So you're going to flip it over, and we're going to add a small bead to the top. And this is where this taped end comes in really handy because it'll actually fit through this little bead. So 1, all right, so now this is what it looks like. I've got my 3 beads on the top, I've got my 3 beads on the bottom, and I've got my 3 strings. You're going to gather your strings up, so you're going to hold them like this so that these are completely even, and then you're going to grab far enough down where you can actually make a loop at the top. So like you're making a knot, and then instead of pushing the end through, you're going to push this part through and pull it up to make a knot. And then you're going to want to pull it really tight, like so. That is what it should look like. You've got a loop with a knot. And you can cut off these little ends if you don't like them hanging down. I cut these off just by a little bit. And what I would recommend is to take your glue gun and put some glue around your knot. I did that with this one, and that will help your knot not to fall out. All right, so here's our finished product. A lovely hanging concrete shelf. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you don't have any questions and this was really easy to understand, and hopefully you didn't get concrete anywhere other than in the bowl that I gave you. All right, see you next week. Have a great week.